see. All right, so this is an ad hoc safety and protective factors committee. We are meeting, this is our second meeting. It's January 30th, and we have most of the board here. Trisha's not here today, and the rest of us are here today. And Frank was gonna catch us up. We have 3 items on the agenda, and Frank's gonna start with the first one.
Sure. So I figured I'd go over the 3 items on the agenda that we kind of took from the last meeting, and then actual discussion and questions and answers through those timeframes. So first I want to talk about communication aspects, because that was something that we said we really wanted to focus on. We went through the website with our new communications person. We realized that the website is actually deficient in the few key points of our safety that we needed. Our safety plan was posted, yet it was hidden. It wasn't easily accessible, and it also wasn't ADA accessible. So that's an important thing, especially for if you want to translate it, because it wouldn't be able to translate either. So we have now created a quick safety links on the bottom of the website. So you can click on it, it's there right on the very bottom. We're kind of putting everything housed into that area. So people can go on, get our ADA accessibility, any work that we do here, any of the things that we are working on, such as like all the things that we've done prior to get to this point, those will be on there. The report from our recent safety vulnerability that the ACS did, I'll explain that a little bit. They'll put that on there. So that will kind of house all of what we're doing as a district in regards to safety, because that was one thing is we're not sharing that message. So this is a way that we can do it. Another thing we're going to be doing,
ACS is Albany
County Sheriff, yep.
Just.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Rolling acronyms.
That's what I said, I'll talk about it later, but I was gonna be quick on that one. But Albany County Sheriffs. And another thing we're gonna do is we're gonna do a bi-monthly newsletter to the community. And that's gonna be basically something for me. And we're gonna do 2 different things on it. One, it's going to basically say all the things that are happening in the district, but there will always be a small safety component in it. So we'll be able to frame that message and talk about who we are, what we're doing, and how we're keeping people safe. And it'll have the whole components. It'll have the exterior and the hardening aspect. It'll have the social emotional aspect. It'll have the anti-bullying. So, safety is a large component. So we'll be able to kind of space that out over a period of time. We're also going to do a fall newsletter each year to our full constituents. In that, we'll have a safety component as well. So the people who aren't in our district and the ones that are outside, they'll also have that information.
These systems of sending things to the public, general public, how's that done?
Through School Messenger. So again, everything costs, if we don't use School Messenger, it will cost money.
I gotta be a subscriber to Messenger.
No. So 2 things. Everybody who has a student in the district will automatically get it.
Okay.
So you're getting your stakeholders of the kids and families that are here. So
right.
As long as you're registered, we have your email address, right?
No, if you're a resident, you should if your child goes to school here, they're in our eSchool system, it should automatically link up. You shouldn't have to be registered.
To the parent?
To the parent.
But you need some way to capture their contact
intake.
information.
You do it
Which
on
is
intake.
funny because
Right.
Jen, the email she gave when we registered, probably Emma for kindergarten, Emma is an email she has not used since then, and I'm the only one who gets like.
So she has to change it.
She has to go change it, but like
So
when you first registered your kid, you ask everybody for an email.
Yeah, so whatever we have on eSchool is what we have, so that's a good component. If you don't have the right email, you gotta change it.
But isn't it
So
for the
that can be part
validation
of the
process
news.
at the
Yes.
beginning?
Yep, that's part of that. If you're not having children in the district, there is a way for you to register, and that's the self-registration component that we have. So those are the 2 ways. What we're missing is the people who don't register, who aren't email savvy, and that's why doing the newsletters out is really important. We do a budget newsletter every year, so we send one to tell people what we want and what we're doing with money, but we don't do anything else to frame who we are.
So the newsletter would be sent through the post office.
Correct. Got it. So that means we have to post it, we have to print it, and then we have to do postage. So there is a cost that goes along with it. But I think it's something that we've talked about, that we're not meeting our general constituents. I think we have to figure out a way to do that. And that is a way that works. You do it one time in the fall and one time in the spring.
Yeah, I guess just the postage, like most of us are gonna get it through
I know.
email and would prefer it that way.
If there's a way that we
And
could
that
do it where
if we
it's,
could
Is there
spread
no
it
style?
out.
I would
Is there a
tell
way
you,
to do a diff on?
I don't know that answer.
I support what you're doing because I know the research that I've seen on this, paper postage, something sent through the mail, it's read more so than other things that get posted online multiple times.
Right.
It's not that you shouldn't be doing the online stuff, but that thing I get in the mail, I stop and read.
Is
So the
that-
thing we do in the mail, the posting for the fall, we will not share that on School Messenger. That would be
Oh,
a
okay.
regular posting. So that's a formal newsletter like we did with the transportation facility. So let me clarify that. That's a whole kind of, here we are as a district, here's the things we're doing, here's who we are, here's, and safety will be a component of that. The one that we're sending out bi-monthly will have safety every time. That will be School Messenger.
Right, okay.
So kind of different messages.
Yeah.
So that's, I know that we talked about communication, that really is the major component of what we've been doing, what we talked about.
So what are we doing to promote the new link at the bottom?
Not much right now because there's not a lot on there. So the bi-monthly newsletter is going to start promoting that, same with Facebook postings and
Promoting what?
Instagram.
The new link to the safety section of the website.
Okay, yeah.
Is there, I can't remember, there's a place where you can, if you have questions, you can ask, I think at the link, or no?
No, I don't think so. If there's any questions or comments, they can always email
Yeah,
me or
just-
building principal. But no, we're gonna start pushing that out after this meeting, after kind of, we get a little bit more information. So we just started, now, again, our communications person literally just started, so this was one of our first things to do. So we're hoping we start rolling this out probably in the next month or two. Any questions on communication? Fit the need of what we discussed and kind of went through. So the needs assessment. So the next thing I did was I went and I did a deep, I don't want to say deep dive because that's like the trendy thing to say, but I looked and I reviewed a lot of different data that we have in the district. So it was discipline reports, supervision protocols, incident response protocols, building safety measures, our hardening measures, our cameras, our door locks, our partnerships with law enforcement, our partnership with outside service workers. So I looked at kind of everything we have in the district. And there was a lot of things that I kind of took away as strengths, and there were things that I actually found that were gaps. And as I talk about the recommendations and things, I will kind of fill in on those areas. We did have Albany County Sheriffs come in today and do a safety vulnerability report. They did it in 2019, right before COVID hit, and they did it today. They're gonna give me two reports that I asked for. One is my report, and that is the nuts and bolts of things that I probably won't share with the public because there's things in it that, could be a safety hazard if somebody understood, or give somebody an edge up on some of the safety measures we're doing. But I also will share that with the building safety team. But then there's also a thing that we're going to share with the public and the board and we'll post. And that's one that is, and it will have, if there's any weaknesses or things we can do, it will talk about that in a generic way, not in a very specific way. But there's very different things. I can share one thing, just kind of so I can explain it to you. We have a very long hallway, right? And again, I'm going to go to the nth degree here, just so you understand that world. That hallway has multiple doorways in it that are fire-rated doors with glass with the little things on it. What we don't have is when our panic button goes off, it's not tied to those, so those don't automatically shut. So our goal is to have those tied to it. And the reason being is, you think, well, it's not locked. Well, you have to stop. Every second's a life saved, right, during a time like that. So if they have to open the door, then they got to open that door. Then if they shoot, they're going to go through a door, or they're going to go through the wiring, which will redirect a bullet. So you're mitigating all of those things. So it might seem simple, like doing that, and like, why would you shut it? But there's a lot of reasons behind it. So, and that's a lot of what we've done with our hardening measures is there's a lot of little things that we've done that people might not understand the giant scope of it, but you do these things to be able to lessen the time that somebody has or make it harder for somebody.
Let me understand what you meant by the long hallway.
Yeah.
So you're saying that there's doors that section off
Yeah.
parts of that's what you're talking
Yep,
about?
those are the doors.
Okay.
And right now, if you were to go down there, and again, I'm going to be morbid, I do apologize. I could take a baseball, but I'm not a very good throw. And I could throw that baseball all the way down, and it could go and hit somebody all the way down near the gym.
Yeah.
If I was good at it. If that door was shut, I might break a window, I might stop, but it won't go all the way down that way. And if I want to go down there, I'd have to open the door, then throw it again, then get hit again. So it just would stop that. So that's the idea that, some of those things are.
I don't think I've ever seen that hallway having doors that were breaking it into sections.
Oh, they're there, they're just always open.
They're always
during the day.
open.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so
And are
that's the
you
idea.
planning on having them closed, or is it when you hit the panic button?
When you hit the panic button,
Okay.
right? Because during the day, you don't want to close because someone's gonna run into them, like, there's a whole bunch of other issues that come out of
Yeah.
this with kids.
Yeah.
But that's why if the panic button is there for emergency situations, just like a fire alarm, you hit it, they close.
Do they lock?
They won't lock. But you don't, again, you're locking egresses, and you're locking areas, so
Yeah.
that's a little bit more dangerous.
Okay,
Because you'd be locking somebody into a situation.
I see.
But that's kind of the stuff that we're looking at, so that report will be coming out. That report will also be shared with the public and put on that safety component. I do want to share that, they said that we had a remarkable difference in comparison to 2019 to now. And that was huge, and they will state that on the report. Our culture of safety has changed completely. Some of the things that we were doing to keep people safe has changed. So they said an unbelievable shift in the 3 years.
Great.
So, and it takes time, right? It takes time to change culture. It takes time to do that. So that was awesome. They do something called a bag drop. So they drop a bag at night and they leave it, and they put prep stuff in it. So it was like prepping stuff. So nothing bad, nothing that could hurt anybody, but definitely stuff that you were opening and be like, what is this? So, well, a student actually found the bag, opened it, and brought it with a concern. So that's huge, right? Because
Yes.
it's not an adult who's trained to do this. This is a kid who saw something out of the norm and said something about it. So the see something, say something, and the more that we do those things and teach social, awareness, that's important in safety. So those kind of things that we're doing, we're going to continue to do because they're making a difference. And they are actually in February having Steve Rothwine come in and do a see something, say something training for the students, 612. So things that I saw that we need to get better on. So our cameras system, we still need to get more. We're working on to do that, but we're definitely gonna have to budget out money in the next 3 years to continually increase our cameras. Right now, we have a Ubiquiti system. The problem is in the people who know wiring and things, but Ubiquiti is not really as strong as some of the other camera systems that are out there. And our DVRs aren't always working. And the other problem is the wiring that we have, nobody actually knows where it goes. So that's not labeled. So that becomes a major issue when you're trying to fix an issue with a camera. So we're gonna rip out and add all new. And so that's something that we already got a quote on, we've already budgeted last year. We are gonna continually budgeting for our camera systems. It just needs to be done. With that, our door locks, we have a lot of door locks that need to be reconfigured. We have some that, we have 2 bathrooms. One bathroom has 1 key, one bathroom has another key. Not everybody has those keys. So we're gonna redefine our locking system over the next 3 years. Our new director of facilities is gonna help do this. And we're gonna streamline it, so make sure that people who need a key have a key, people who don't need a key don't have a key. And we're gonna revisit our locking systems on our doors to make sure that they're the ones that are most recommended for safety. One thing we did do, and that actually is pretty good, is we have locking door protocols across the building now. So, and we're investigating actually having doors locked at all times, so a staff member should shut the door or keep the door locked. Because if a door is locked, a bad actor's in a hallway, they can't get into that door where they want to go see somebody. Now, that is a culture shift that we have to work on because it's very difficult for teachers because you have to have somebody open the door, it will stop instruction, but it's things that we're going to look at. But we have protocols for the PAC and all our large space areas now where our doors are shut, one stays open, and if there is an event of a lockdown, those doors can quickly be shut and locked with without 0 loss of time. So that's something we did this year. That I'm proud of, that during the audit, I'm like, we didn't have that before, and now we do. So it's steps in the right direction.
When you say a key, is it an actual key?
Oh,
Is it
yeah.
Swipe card or?
Oh, keys, I'd love to go swipe cards, but I'll show you. Here's my keys.
And is that the preferable technology versus a swipe card or?
Well, I'd love to have
a
swipe
code?
cards on all our doors,
Yeah.
but that's really, really expensive.
Okay,
And you'd have to basically do a whole capital
and
register to do that.
code, numeric codes or,
You don't want numeric codes because they're easy. You
Yeah.
have key
Yeah.
or swipe card.
okay,
So these are the keys. I was in a district where we redid it, and it was, I had 1 key got me in every door. So the general master really is, you want people to have those, then you can go off. It does cost a lot of money, like to rekey and recode a district, there's some budgetary expenses that come along with that. So in our capital projects, you know, our $100,000 capital projects and our project down here and projects we do in the future and small projects, we really need to start budgeting this in over the next few years. So it'll take time. That's why I said 3 years. But this is what you don't want. And if I'm a teacher and I have to get into 3 different rooms and there's something going on and, you know, I'm under
Oh.
pressure, think about that.
Yeah.
So we're gonna work on fixing that as well. We have done a lot of work to harden our buildings though, and our exteriors and all that, so that has really done, I think we're in a good place, and so does Albany County Sheriff's. Was very surprised at, excuse me, how far we've come on that.
Right.
Yeah,
Can I ask on the rekeying, is there a priority in terms of the buildings where you would start based on current state?
so I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. It's one that I looked at, because each building has its own weaknesses. You know, elementary school, they're all in one room, so it's a little bit easier down there, but I still saw problems. Here in the middle school, high school, when you have a lot of transferring, you know, I think it becomes a little bit more of an issue, and we have more rooms to go into and where they could be. So there's definitely some problems that we have to work through.
When you say they're all in one room, you're talking about a class of
Yeah,
kids.
so an elementary school
Stays in
teacher,
that classroom.
exactly. But a teacher here, they might be moving from a different room to a different room. Like, let's say a consultant teacher who does resource room and special education services, they might be in 5 different rooms throughout the day. And if they're the sole teacher in that room, that becomes an issue.
Yeah.
So things like that. So I'm not really sure where we're gonna start. I'm waiting on the director of facilities after he gets assimilated a little bit to kind of work with him on that. But that definitely is gonna be something that we go through. So we're gonna definitely continue that. One thing that we're going to work on is our sign-in systems and protocols. We have sign-in systems. Elementary school does a sign-in system where the parents sign in. It's an Excel spreadsheet that automatically goes to the principal, so you can see who's coming in. What
So
we
after
don't,
after that physical write down, they
Yeah.
go and ingest it
they
somewhere.
do, yep. But what we're not doing is we're not checking licenses all the time. We're not confirming. Again, I'm gonna tell you the goods and bads, and it's recorded, but there are certain things that we can do better. So I'm going to look at the Raptor system. Raptor is a sign-in system. Do you have it?
No, the YMCA's have it.
Yeah. So basically, it's a system. You put in your license your first time, it runs your license. So you know if someone's on the sex offender registry or anything like that. So that's a layer of safety that we don't have that will create for us. It creates a badge of where they're going. So we'll always, it won't just say visitor. It will say who the person is and where they're going. That's important. I worked in a district once before where somebody said they were going to go and they were going to the guidance office and instead they assaulted a student. You know, so having that and you have somebody checking it, because we have vigilance, right? We have people confronting other people always. Oh, I'm sorry, where are you going? Oh, you're going to the guidance office. I'm sorry, that's that way. You're in the wrong
Do you
place.
need me to help
Let me
find
walk
that?
you there. Right. Those
Does
are,
it have pictures and dates?
Yeah.
and
It prints the photo.
expiration?
it will have all those things on
I
there.
like the ones that are time limited, where it then like, over time would be like expired.
Yeah, well, have a day on it. That's neat. though, does that.
Yeah, there are ones. that-
Right. And someone might say,
Service
well,
workers,
everybody.
everybody.
Parents, service workers. Now, again, I've rolled this out in a couple other places. Not everybody likes it because it does change some of the feeling of the building, and it does put a little bit more on your office workers at the beginning. But it is a safety measure that goes in place. And people say, well, not in Voorheesville. Well, that's what I want to, like, all through all of this and all I've been looking at, and for the past 3 years since I've been here, because again, we've done a lot. We can't say, well, it's Voorheesville, or we have to say, it could happen here. When is it gonna happen here, and what can we do to mitigate it?
Yeah, but I think the burden on staff will be mitigated too when we establish the secure vestibule,
All
so
of
then people don't have to come in.
Yeah.
Right, and that's, and even then with the secure vestibule, they have time to be able to do all of it. So we're doing a lot of really good
Running
things.
to the phone to buzz people.
Right,
every
and
2
by the
seconds.
way, Albany County Sheriff's with the vulnerability said that was awesome. He wasn't aware that we had that going in already. He couldn't believe it. He goes, you're already ahead of some other places. So I was happy with that.
Great.
So one thing that we don't have here, and I've been saying it for a while, is we do not have a comprehensive social emotional program through the district. We have a program that is delivered by the guidance counselors to the students. So I have one guidance counselor delivering a program to 650 kids in the elementary school. One guidance counselor, that is not an embedded social emotional program. There's a current grant out there that will allow us to get a social emotional level program that our actual guidance counselors endorse. that will allow for our staff and everyone to take hold of. So it's not just one person, it becomes a cultural aspect. And with that, there's civility components, peer relations, restorative practices, things that we're really not doing as well as we could be, right? We're not doing a lot of restorative practices here, and I'm going to talk about that afterwards. But that was one thing that I also saw that we could work on. Again, we're doing a lot of really, really good things. I'm being nitpicky, but
Yeah.
things that we can make growth on. So this social emotional program is called Second Step. You know, I think this is a really good place if we get this grant, it's $100,000 grant to help us for it's 3 years of buying this digital program. It pays for all the training and everything goes along with it. It's a $100,000 grant up to. The other thing that it has that we don't have is an anti-bullying program. So we have social emotional programs, but we do not have a targeted intervention anti-bullying program. Some schools use Obeas, they use other programs. Do you know what you use?
I don't know if we have a specific
Yeah.
anti-bullying one.
So, and if you start K and you level that anti-bullying program and you talk about self-efficacy and what to do as bystanders and seeing all these things, it becomes inherently part of your culture. That's just something that we need to do. So I'm hoping that this grant will help us be able to get these programs and put this in place. So we're doing the work, but it's in
Right.
pockets.
I remember that the elementary school had lots of activity about bullying, educating kids what it looked like, what do you do when you see it.
Oh, yeah, we have certain
So-
heroes that comes in,
Yeah.
right? And that's not an anti-bullying program. That's an
Yeah.
anti-bullying assembly,
No,
right? They come in, it's a one-off. So, and we do one-offs, right? We do the one-offs and we have our principals talk about it and we have our guidance counselors talk about it, but it's not embedded. It's not lessons and curriculum that's given out through the whole year and then leveled from kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. So by the time the kids are in seventh grade, they've already had and understand bullying, right? And they already had and understand all of this information. That's what we're not doing. We're doing in pockets, or we're doing these one-offs, but we don't have a full program. I've worked with Obeas, not something that I'm gonna recommend here. But Second Step does have an anti-bullying program that I would recommend. And I think it's definitely the intervention place that we need to start at.
Okay.
You think we have a problem?
I don't think we have a bullying problem, but I think, let's talk about it. 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, kids had peer conflict, right? There's always peer conflict. There's always been the idea of bullying. Look at all the movies and everything else. We need to educate our students on what peer conflict is, right? Because most of the bullying we have is a lot more peer conflict than bullying. But, what are these things?
Help me understand what you mean by peer.
I was your friend, now I'm not your friend, now I hate you, right? And now I'm not gonna talk to you any longer because I'm not your friend any longer. And then 2 days later, I become your friend again.
So
right.
it's not bullying as much as we're having a.
Right. If I'm
disagreement,
talking about,
fighting.
right, if I'm talking about, let's say, I don't like your white hair, I'm targeting something on you, and then I'm continually doing it over and over again, that's bullying,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
So slightly different issues, but there's a lot of different ways to do it. When you're doing the peer conflict, restorative practices, circles, interventions like that, people sitting down and having these conversations and mediations, those are what we have to see more of, which I'm not seeing. Right? We're doing it, and there's reasons why I'm not seeing it. I'm gonna get to that in a minute. But those are things that I think we need to work on a lot. Does that make sense? You're asking great questions, Tim.
Yeah, but I think, my own personal opinion, a lot of bullying is learned behavior,
Mhm.
right? And we can do what we can, but there's other aspects to this that are happening outside of the school environment, but I think we should try
They're, right,
to handle our piece.
but if we're actually teaching it, and if it's part of our curriculum, and it doesn't just become one person's job or two people's job, it becomes who we are, that changes that dynamic a lot. And I tell you, I've been in a place where we've done this and it has worked. Like, I've seen this.
And whatever people learn at home and do at home, like, I think every kid knows that when they go to one person's house, this is how they
Yep.
behave, and when they come into the school district, at least we know that within the district walls, and maybe that those lessons are valuable to the student, to the family, and they go home, but no matter what, at least kids can come to school and feel safe, like this is a safe place. So.
I have heard where, and I fully believe in, let's work this out. I believe in that philosophy. I have heard from teachers who from time to time said, we've given this kid a lot of chances and he just is never gonna get his act together. And I don't want him back in my classroom.
Mhm.
Is that something you?
So it's a loaded question on camera. So I will tell you, when there's discipline and issues, you should always discipline the student, right? There's action, reaction.
Mhm.
So there should always be a leveled consequence that goes along with it. But never, ever should we say, we're gonna give up on the child,
Okay.
right? And every child gets a free and appropriate education. That's it.
Yeah.
Every single kid. We're not a private institution.
Right.
So, yeah, all right, maybe this child is hard to handle, maybe there's difficulties. Let's discipline the issue, address it, target those interventions, then work through those interventions. Who are we working with? Do we have outside counselors? What kind of program are we have? What are the child's triggers? Do we have a behavioral plan for them? Is there an FBA? All these other things that go into it. If we just say that and we're done with them, well, guess what? We've already created a dropout. We've already created a more violent individual, and we're not off-ramping this child. I'm sorry, I'll get on a tangent on this.
I 100% agree.
We're not off-ramping this child from violence. We're actually putting them on a ramp to violence. So that's where we have to change that mentality. And yes, it can be very difficult in a classroom, and yes, it's hard. And that's where the staff need the social emotional supports as well. By the way, the Second Step program offers that. But it's gotta be for everyone. And it's not easy. And you know what? You're not always gonna win. There might be those times where a child, you've tried and tried and tried, and unfortunately, they might have done something that is pretty bad. And you're saying, well, I tried my best. And I will be first one to tell you that I have visited children in jail for heinous crimes, and I've said to them, what did you do? Like, I tried. And I've had other kids where they were lucky, they come back to me years later and say, thank you so much, because I would be in jail right now.
Yeah.
So that's our job, right? I think that's part of it.
Good for you.
I digressed a little bit.
No, I like that.
Sorry.
It's all right, it's part of the.
So, again, I did look at our DASA complaints forms, that's our Dignity for All Act, and responsibilities. I think our principals are handling it appropriately. They're doing a very good job with it. I definitely think there's things that we can do better with our reporting and with our paperwork stuff. So I'm having our attorney come in. He's actually training all of our principals and coordinators. And then he's also going to come back and we're going to do more training for all of our staff on identifying harassment issues, identifying bullying, and how to report it. So yes, we're going to do like a top-down kind of effect here. Train our coordinators, train our principals, look at how we do our paperwork and our determination letters and how those work, clean that up. And then we're going then to retrain everybody in the district. So it's going to take a little time, but we're going to have like kind of a pyramid approach on this.
So what has been your experience? You properly file the information you need for DASA and the violent incidents reports, things like that. What happens next? And have you had experience where it's been appropriately handled?
Yes, here, absolutely. What I'm more concerned with is how are we filing it? What's our investigation look like? What does our paper look like?
Yeah.
How does all our investigation procedures look like? There is a thing in New York State, it's actually 14 pages long. We use a 3-page long one. So, I think there's some things that we can tweak, based off of recommendations that we can fix and it's really paperwork kind of stuff. But then how do we file our determination letters? What do our determination letters look like? Yeah, I should send you, like you file a complaint on bullying, I'm gonna send you a determination letter. I might say, no, it wasn't bullying and here's why.
Yeah.
But I will have to tell you that. And then each time we do it. So those are things that we're gonna tweak and fix.
And that will serve the kids better because.
Well, it will serve the adults better because then they'll have a good comprehensive understanding of all the situations. Everybody will have the exact same way that they're gonna handle DASA and then how they do in their investigations. So that way it doesn't change from principal to principal to principal or coordinator from coordinator to coordinator, it's all level.
So kids will have consistency.
Yeah, and that's, to get a program right first, you have to look at the root, and the root is the people doing it, is it consistent? And then what do you do? How does your mediations look? What is your restorative practices? Because if your investigation isn't sound, you're missing a whole component.
Better record keeping means
Yep.
better tracking and understanding.
And sometimes somebody's gonna say it's bullying and it may not be, and a parent may not be happy with that. Or sometimes they're gonna say it's bullying and school says, yep, it is bullying, let's fix it. Like, there's different ways. And just because it's not bullying doesn't mean it's not getting addressed. Those are two different things as well. So,
and I don't know everything I should on this
Yeah.
topic, but when we're responding to close out the complaint saying it's not bullying, that's one resolution, but assuming we conclude it is bullying, I think we have to be careful about what we say about what we will do
So
with the.
that is why our
students.
attorney has drafted response letters for me and is training all of our staff on exactly how that is, because you can't give away discipline issues, right?
Right.
So there's very specific things, and that's why I'm bringing our attorney in to make sure that we're doing it correctly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, templates are good
Huge.
for this.
I'm a giant fan of templates. Prior to me getting here, not a ton of templates.
Yeah.
Now I have a file full of templates that everybody uses. Yeah.
But it is important to close the loop.
Yep. And that is the one thing that I will be very honest with you. They've done a very good job at addressing and doing it. It's putting the period at the end of it. That's where we can get better at it.
Well, that's where most organizations fall down,
Yeah.
so you're not alone in that respect.
But again, I think this needs assessment's been very good because it's highlighted some things that we can work on, and they're small,
Yeah.
but the small things can become big things. But I'm gonna get to the next step because I'm leveling this all so you can, and I'm sorry if I'm just talking to death. So, all right. Next thing, so I'm going to train and bring in restorative practices such as restorative justice, circles, and mediations. I'm going to give PD, trying to find it for my administrators first so they understand it best, and then bring it down. Because if you're doing the social emotional learning, you're doing an anti-bullying program, you're doing all of these things, this restorative practices is going to be very important. And it's not only for the kids, it's also for in the classroom, right? Peer conflict or teacher-student conflict or perceived teacher-student conflict, where a student says, oh, the teacher hates me. Well, that's not true. But if you're not addressing it and doing a mediation with the teacher and student, you're creating a worse environment. So having those conferences and having restorative practices and having circles and having an environment to do it is our next step of doing a welcoming environment. But it's all a lot of stuff, and not the people that we have right now can't all do it. So here's what I'm going to do. Our elementary social worker, we're going to restructure that. So our K-5 social worker is now like a K, and then we do a 612. We're taking our social worker and we're just one social worker, K-5, 600 students. One social worker, 612, 600 students. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but remember, social worker doesn't work with all kids, and I'm going to keep going into this. Now comes the budgetary issues. So I know this started off with SRO component. I cannot right now recommend an SRO for the district because there are other things that we need to do first. If we have these other layers in place, I would say, yep, I would recommend an SRO for the district. We can put one in, this is how it would work. If we bring in an SRO now, they would become a pseudo assistant principal and pseudo dean. And it really isn't what we need. That's not what their job is. So that's why I don't feel like that's a layer that we are not prepared for. What we are prepared for and what we need are two different things. I'm going to be recommending to the board as part of the budget, and I've been working through it. I'm recommending developing a TOSA, teacher on alternate assignment, dean of students and guidance counselor position. So a half dean, half guidance counselor at the elementary school. So with that, your guidance counselor, your social worker, and your part-time guidance counselor who could do restorative practices, peer conflict, and all those other things. Your ratio is under 1 to 250, which is the recommendation for counselors and social workers. So we are right there, actually better, having those three people down there. And then Jeff has the ability, who is the sole principal of that, like, he does a great job of 600 kids, but you know what? He's out doing 45 minutes of bus duty. He's out doing 45 minutes of getting parents in and out in the morning.
Yeah.
That's time that he could be working with staff, doing instructional models, doing other things that he should be doing. And that supervision is what a dean should be doing, keeping a pulse, getting to know students, doing those things. Now, Jeff can still do them, but he doesn't have to do them 45 minutes a day in the morning and 45 minutes a day in the afternoon. That time then can be used to do his other jobs, right? So restructuring and refocusing down there will really help move that forward. Any questions on that one?
This is one additional staff member
Down there.
down
Now,
there.
I'm only talking safety.
No, I
right?
understand.
There's other things that I'm in the budget, but
Gotcha.
tonight's only safety. Any questions on that one?
So what exactly would this person's job duties entail?
So we haven't figured out, because I haven't really,
Stuff.
well, they do stuff, you know.
Yeah,
I have,
Other duties as
So,
requested.
I've been thinking about it for a good 2 months, but I haven't gone public with it because I haven't gone here yet, right? And I wasn't sure if it was needed, and I did the needs assessment, I'm like, okay. So one, they would be peer conflict. So when the student comes in, they're kicked out of the classroom, or they're doing those things. that'll be there to be able to handle the situation, because Jeff will spend a lot of time doing it now. Then he's not in the classroom, he's not working instruction, he's not doing all the other stuff, mapping and all these other things we want him to do, not getting done. That person will help do that. That person will do supervision. So the bus duty and the morning duties that Jeff does, the principal of the building really doesn't need to do those all the time. The dean of students absolutely can. So they would help with that, so then it would restructure some of the things he would do. And as the guidance counselor position, that would then allow that guidance counselor, they would take on the one-on-ones, like the smaller groups or the small one-on-one things, or the ones that pop up, allowing Kristen to then be able to focus more in on the other issues in the bigger groups. We haven't tweaked all this out yet.
Okay,
Like, there's definitely more tweaking to be done,
okay.
but it's the kind of work in progress.
Are there state and federal dollars that are being targeted for this type of a position?
It's general fund. Questions?
What would this person's certification or degree be?
Guidance counselor.
Guidance counselor.
Yep.
Acting as a dean.
Half-time guidance
Half-time.
counselor, half-time dean.
Okay.
Now, the district has had TOSA deans before. They have not had them at the elementary, they've had them at the middle school and high school. And I don't think this is the right path, and I'm not gonna recommend it here, but they've used, and it was different certifications, and they just did dean work. It was like assistant principal dean work.
So the position that Kristen Huntsman is in now would report to this.
Nope, same unit. So that's the difference. The TOSA is a teacher. So they don't have any, they're not an administrator, they wouldn't oversee Kristen or anything, they'd be a partner with Kristen.
Okay.
Jeff would still be a part of that, Karen Jones would still be a part of that. That they're still in the teachers union.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry, and then they would all report to Jeff.
they would still all report to Jeff, yeah, this is on the teacher's side. Make sense?
Yep.
Any other questions on this one? Again, Jeff's building's growing down there and he's one person, well over 600. I mean, I'm surprised he's been able to.
Keep a smile on his face.
Yeah, because I mean, that's a big task down there and he's been doing a great job.
Well, they're also gonna have the capital project to jump.
There's a
into.
lot of other stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, everything else. is
Yeah.
going on.
I will state that both times that we did the safety vulnerability at the elementary school, they both scored with flying colors both years. Like, he really does, his safety component down there is really one of the highest levels I've seen. So, you know, and they've said that too. It's just flying colors down there. All right, so next, at the middle school, high school, let me explain really quick what we have. We have 600 students again at the high school roughly, right? Middle school and high school, secondary campus. We have a guidance counselor in the middle school. We have 2 guidance counselors in the high school. And then we have a full-time social worker. That's 4 people, you know, for 600 kids. Again, the ratio is 1 to 250. We're exceeding that. So that then really does, because we talked about that, right? And I believe Trish brought it up saying, what is the ratio? What's the number? So that really does match that. I think that does put us on the progressive side, by the way, of meeting our kids' needs. Then with the social emotional learning component and second step, kind of all adds to it. What is happening though is that Dan, and I'm going to use his name, sorry, I forgot we're recording. The middle school counselor also then becomes the pseudo dean, right? So when there's issues that come up, or there's peer conflict, or there's other issues, or there's discipline stuff, he's handling that. That's really not his role, right? His role should be doing some mediations and doing those things, but he's got a guidance counselor's job that he's supposed to be doing. So it's kind of clouding that a little bit. So my suggestion and my recommendation to the board is going to be, and I'm still working through this, an assistant principal for the middle school, high school. So this would be an administrator. They would work with, you know, so that way they would do mornings, afternoons, supervisions at night. They would be able to share that load with everyone that's there. Right now we have a middle school principal, a high school principal, and an athletic director / dean of students. Now, that athletic director / dean of students is supposed to be the assistant principal for 612. That is impossible. Like, it really is just impossible. If you would expect that person to do attendance, you expect them to do all these other things and do discipline, and to do discipline well, like, and I want to state this, you have to know every single kid's name. You got to be in the lunchrooms, you got to be in the hallways when there's going, you have to know the interactions, you have to be on top of those referrals. Like, to be a disciplinarian it's a full-time job.
There used to be an assistant principal here.
I believe a long time ago, and then they went to deans, and then,
Joe Begoni,
yeah, oh, I
he
knew.
was assistant principal.
Oh, I know, Joe told me all about it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
But,
he and my son spent some time together.
so, and then it's changed and it went through some iterations, but it definitely is a layer, you know, and I actually said it to one of the officers that comes into our safety meetings, and I said, we don't have one. He goes, you don't have one? He thought we did. Cause it's a layer that really is needed. Cause then the principal then can do some other things, but then step in when the larger things are there. And so it will allow us to be able to kind of put our hands up to where they need to go. There has to be a lot of planning. So if you're gonna ask me what they're doing right now,
Yeah.
I've been struggling on this one still, so I have to really walk through it with the admin team and go through it. I have some very specific things, but I'm not ready to kind of release it. Because I'm gonna redo what the Dean of Students does.
Okay.
Their job's gonna change. Framework of what the guidance counselors get, that's gonna have to change. What the principals do, there's gonna have to be a different change in that. Who oversights this person? I don't have an answer on that one
Yeah,
yet.
that was gonna be my question.
I don't have the answer yet, right?
And
Because
there's a budget implication.
Yes.
there is a budget implication. You're correct. But
Pretty significant one if you're talking about that level of administrative support.
I wanna say this again.
I'm not
Yeah,
opposed to it, I'm
no,
just saying that
but we're talking 75,000 to 80,000, right? For an assistant
I
principal
would have thought more
position.
than that.
I would have that too.
Plus bonus.
I'm cheap. Well, if you wanna go longer, we could go more. That's, I didn't include Benny's. Sorry, when I first started as an assistant principal was a long time ago, so. no.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think there's some wiggle room in there. It wouldn't be crazy amounts that I've seen in other places, so.
Yeah, well,
But it opens up
you
other
know,
positions.
everyone's having trouble hiring,
Yeah.
right? So the market has changed.
It's
I'm sure,
changed,
since
yeah.
you were an assistant principal.
Oh, immensely. So, but we'd have to figure all those things out. And I also have to figure out the range that they would work with. Because I'm not thinking this is gonna be a 6-12. I'm really thinking either a 6-9 or a 6-10, because I want the 8th-9th transition to be really important. And the 8-9-10 transition is really, that's a lot developmentally. There's a lot of changes that go on in there. And somebody knowing those kids all the way through that is extremely important. Then I think the 11-12 could easily be the current dean we have, dean athletic director, to handle those situations, because it's a different level. It really is. After they hit, if you've been in schools, you'll know this. After they hit 10th grade, it starts to be a change. By 11th grade and 12th grade, it's a completely different person. It really is.
I'm hoping.
I had a student, I will tell you, I had a student one time,
You'd be surprised.
he was,
I'm kidding.
he was probably, every staff member did not want him in the classroom. I suspended him, couldn't tell you how many times, superintendent hearings, arrested in handcuffs out of the building, okay? Like 9th grade, worst student like ever, right? Senior year, we created a special award called the Phoenix Award, and every single teacher gave it to him. He went to college, I actually dropped him off on his first day. Like, that was the kid, right? So, and by 11th grade, it was like, there was a change. Because 9th and 10th grade, there was structure, discipline, and reaction, right? There was all these different things these kids need. We need to work on that here. So when we get to that 11th and 12th grade, then the dean is working on it. So we're not there yet, and I don't have the complete answer of how this is gonna work.
Okay. When do you want this in place?
Next year.
Next
No,
year.
this is all budgetary implications, right? So it has to all go through the budget. But the assistant principal, handle referrals, do peer mediations, restorative practices, and equity officer for the district. Because
Separate role.
separate, together, yeah, separate role. So there are school districts, no, same person,
Same person.
Oh.
same person.
Two people.
Does this
Yeah.
free up the principal to some extent?
Yes, it does. So that's why I said I'm gonna have to,
And-
there's gonna be a
and the
flow
dean
chart of
of
who handles what and how they handle it.
Yeah.
Well, you're
That's-
saying an equity officer is going to be a separate?
No, it's the same one.
Same
Same
person.
person.
They take on,
Okay.
so right now, the equity work in the
Elementary
district,
school and then
Yeah.
this campus somewhere.
yeah, they would do it. So districts right now, they're hiring assistant principals and equity officers at the same time, because some of them can't justify a full-time equity officer. Right now, the equity work is being led by myself and Karen Conroy. So we're doing it and we're getting it done, but having someone boots on the ground working on this is really what you need. So this person would also fill that need as well. So this, more than assistant principal, but also the equity officer component.
Feels like 7 or 8 hats would be removed from different
Yes.
current
Well,
positions.
it's not fully removed, because there's always accountability and, ownership, but at least leveled a little bit more.
I'm asking you to generalize here, but we think social and emotional needs, are they more intense at the elementary level or more intense at the middle school, high school level?
Well, I've taught middle school for years, so I'll tell you middle school. It's a different, elementary school is the foundations, right? And I will tell you, and I people who listen to this, if you're going to have budgetary concerns and you have to make a choice between high school and elementary, I would say pick high school. And I was a high school principal, but elementary is your foundations. If you start cutting program and people at the elementary school, and that could have a negative impact on students, right? You got to put your efforts in down there, because what you put in there changes. The middle school, though, developmentally, those students are all over the board, right? And even the foundations that they have might be lost for a little while. So having a really strong component there is really needed, because it's a different time frame.
Interesting.
So that's what we're looking at for that. Again, assistant principal would be, I don't think attendance,
Okay.
because I want the dean maybe doing attendance, but again, we have to still work through this. And I haven't gone completely public with it because I wanted to talk to the board first. Definitely referrals, definitely transitions, definitely peer mediation, social responsibility, making connections with students, making sure they know all the students, those are really important things, and supervision. Who's walking to the hall, who's going to the vape sensors, all of those things are important components. Right now, we have the other people doing it, so think about all the layers that are on there.
So what sort of pushback do you anticipate from other constituencies?
Oh, and then my last one was engage law enforcement and outside agencies even more. I mean, Trish is on our district-wide safety team. I wish she was here because she sees really the nuts and bolts of all the work we do. And law enforcement sits on all these committees with us, right? So they're always here. We're always making connections with them. I think people need to understand, right, that you can't have the icing if you don't have the foundation of what you need. And so they're like, well, I want an armed security monitor in the building or an officer in the building. Okay, I could see having a school resource. Again, I've been a proponent of school resource officers. I've had resource officers before. I understand their need and use. But if you don't have those other layers yet, I can't justify them. So I think if people understood that, I don't think there's gonna be a ton of pushback, right? But they need to understand that that doesn't mean we don't call law enforcement. I mean, the assistant principal doesn't know all the probation officers, or is filing pins, which we don't do a lot of, by the way, which we should. Pins is pupil in need of supervision. And if you're not doing it by 16, you've lost the opportunity. So really, you should be filing 6th, 7th, 8th grade. That's where the most pins should be. I don't know if you agree, but.
You got it, yeah,
Yeah.
I do agree.
Yeah, and we're not filing pins in 7th and 8th grade, right? We're waiting to 10th grade when there's an issue, like, oh, we should have filed the pins. No, you should have done it earlier. So the assistant principals really can help with that too. So I don't think there's gonna be a pushback there. I think there'll be a pushback on where the budget lies, right? Because, there's always, well, you're putting it in this line or you're putting in the administrative line. Whenever you add to an administrative line in a budget, I think there's always pushback. Oh, we're just putting in another layer of bureaucracy, or we're putting another layer of administration in. So I think there will be that concern of, why are we adding to the administrative line? Why are we doing this? Why are we adding?
Wouldn't the SRO add to an administrative line,
It would, I think, general fund line.
general fund?
Yeah.
What is our administrative load, and I don't expect an answer right now, proportionate to pupil compared to other schools of our size?
We can ask Jim that at audit and have him
Yeah.
go through that. That's a great question.
Just like
But
our.
we're pretty level on this. Like, we don't have a lot of infrastructure. We have a curriculum director,
Mhm.
K-12. We have a PPS director, K-12, who also does guidance. And then we have an elementary school principal, middle school principal, high school principal, assistant building, assistant superintendent for business and finance, and then the athletic director / dean. I mean, there's no fluff in there. There's no other positions that are in there. So,
Yeah.
and I don't feel that it needs to be an administrator at the elementary school. I actually feel that a guidance counselor position down there is better because that person is trained to be able to work through those issues and work them. And also if we're doing the SEL component, can help lead that as well. So pushback wise, I think that really is it.
You anticipate, I think, Art, you brought this up, anticipate having a difficult time finding quality people for these positions?
No, I don't. I think we can, but knowing some pools out there and how to connect to people, I think we can find some. I think finding the guidance counselor position will be difficult. I think finding the assistant principal equity officer, there's people out there. I think it's a better way to look, and you have to expand the way that we look for people. I'm a part of an equity chair group, so I chair and now co-chair with someone else, the Equity Officers Committee for the Capital Region. So all equity officers meet with me and the districts, and then my other co-chair meets with the superintendents, we all meet. So there's a superintendent equity, and then the equity officers chair. That group knows other people who want jobs too, right? So it's all of these different people and connections that you make. So I don't think it will be difficult.
You think you'd be hiring somebody who will become an assistant principal for the first time?
Yeah, it could be. There's a possibility of that. Or there's a possibility that we could find a dynamics person who's already been being an assistant principal. I don't know that answer.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I was a music teacher and was hired as an assistant principal. You know, so, you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
And I didn't know what I didn't know back then. I was trained and, trained appropriately and professionally. And I think that's the way that, we can build on it. So that's my report based off of the first conversation. Questions, thoughts,
Where do we want to go from here as a committee also?
things that we want to change, maybe agree, disagree with?
Can I ask one question?
You can ask
Sort of
as many
separate
questions you want.
topic, but related.
Yep.
We got some feedback on the safe school hotline or helpline. Were we able to resolve that issue?
I don't know the specific one you're talking about. Oh,
Where is it?
that I can't discuss at public session.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
At one time, we talked about doing this advertisement, signing on to this program that was a message to students and families about gun safety.
Yep.
That's still in the
It's on the
works?
policy.
Policy committee.
Okay.
Top of the
Okay.
agenda.
That's why you're gonna sleeping bag.
Yeah, and look at the recent study. They said that
You tell me.
10 shootings were all,
Oh,
the most recent
to
shootings
me,
have
that's a
been 10
no-brainer,
years and
right?
10 years old and younger are now getting the weapons from the home.
Unbelievable.
So, that resolution is timely and important.
Yes, it is.
Here's what I'm thinking right now. It might be, it's me. I'm thinking that we just received a lot of information and might want to digest it. We have a meeting for the board scheduled Monday. Perhaps we want to discuss what next steps, if any, we want the committee to go to. We have recommendations. We can discuss them at the board meeting on Monday if we want to, or just,
The only thing I'm a little nervous when you're saying that, and I just thought about it, is since there's some budgetary impacts here,
Mhm.
we don't have, we'll have it by February 1st. No, I'll be okay. I just didn't
That's
want to be
Wednesday.
able, so if I don't have the state runs yet, because again, this is all dependent on the runs and,
yeah.
we have a lot of estimates going on right now, but we don't have finalizations. So I just would be very nervous saying, we're gonna do this, and then come to find out
Yeah.
that we can't do this.
We're
because we
pretty
don't have the
used to
money.
having
Yeah.
these are our tiers.
Okay.
So like the top of the list and then what we have to slice off of the.
I don't like doing that. I like
Yeah.
creating a plan, having a vision,
The
and
whole
then
thing, yeah.
doing that vision.
We're not used to that.
I don't want to pick and choose what I think is important. I think if I'm giving it to you, I think it's all important.
Yeah.
Has
Yeah.
there been a movement within the community to hire an SRO?
I've had a handful of people reach out. So, and then I've talked to, again, these are anecdotal conversations,
Mhm.
I've had people say, no, I don't think we really need one. Why, I think we need this, or I think we need that. But, so there hasn't been I want one, and there hasn't been I don't want one.
Not a big rush.
No.
Okay, so this is a plan.
Yeah.
That we're offering, assuming our support.
Yeah.
We're offering that would say SRO not now,
Mhm.
not within this plan. Maybe someday, but not now.
Okay.
And our priorities are gonna be this way. And it doesn't sound like you're gonna get a lot of pushback against that.
I don't know that answer. I
I
mean,
know you don't.
you never know, but I think you gotta get your house in order.
Yeah.
And, my professional opinion, and again, I've done discipline, discipline and structure is the one thing I'm good at. I will tell you, I worked urban school districts for a long time, and it's just the thing that I'm good at.
Yeah.
After a long time of doing it, and there are things that we can do that will increase the safety components and not the welcoming environment, right? I think that's important, because these things aren't just safety. We're talking, well, the students skip class, right? Well, why are they skipping class, or why are they doing these things? There's a lot more there about mobile crisis and kids' health, and it's a lot more than, it's all of it together.
Well, I can only speak for myself, but I can say that, if there was an acknowledgement that we as a school district once had an assistant high school principal. And my experience was that was a necessary thing to have.
But you didn't have a middle school principal, correct?
Correct.
I just want to put I want to
okay.
throw the hole in there,
I don't know the
is
answer
that
to
you didn't have two principals, right?
No, there was one.
There was one
There was
principal,
also one less grade.
okay,
But
so
it was 7 through 12 at the time.
it probably
that time,
was
yeah.
it,
At the
and it
time.
probably
And
wasn't
this-
600 kids either,
When they
right?
built the addition, 6 came up.
It's about the same. But one less grade.
So, yeah, I just want to say that, so
That's a good
it is a different layer of administration than
Okay,
it was
I
there,
get
so
you now.
you can't use that as the,
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not rebuilding what it was.
but times are different, right? The programs are different.
Yeah.
The needs are different, so, things aren't the same as they were 15 years
And
ago.
I think that is really fundamentally what is at play here. The world has changed.
We have, bullet shields on our windows, right?
That's right.
Like there's those things it's a different world.
People get that.
Other thoughts, questions?
No, I think that, well, I'll have to get together with you and Jim to talk about agenda for
Yeah.
audit and what fits into, and Rachel too,
Yeah.
to talk about what fits into audit committee versus regular
Yeah.
board.
Right.
There might be some overlap, but at least so we have clear lines.
So for our agenda setting, we'll put like a review of this meeting and discussion of next steps for this committee, perhaps. It was an ad hoc committee, it's not meant to go on and on and on. We wanted to get an overview of safety concerns, safety and protective factors, really. What does it look like here in the district, and how does that fit into the budget, which is under our purview? So with that in mind, what do we need more as a board? Is the committee served its purpose, or do we keep going in some direction that I don't see right now?
So I will say, I don't want to interrupt,
Go
but
ahead.
I can share the job duties and organization with the full board. It doesn't have to be in the same committee, but I do want to articulate what this will look like very clearly to the board.
Mhm.
So you have an understanding of what you'd be supporting.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful for us to continue in sort of an advisory, like sounding board for you as we move forward. Like some of the things have to be in the budget and they will be, but there's going to be ongoing issues. I don't think we need to meet like every month for the rest of the year, but do you think that would be helpful, Frank, or do you think you got it?
Or he can meet, like, it could be
I-
something that we discuss at board meetings too.
Yeah,
I
I think
think-
that's a better way to go.
If it's a 10 or 15-minute discussion, it's something we can do within a board meeting. If it's 45 minutes to an hour, I think then we need to have an ad hoc committee meeting. And if you've done the needs assessment and really dug into this for the purposes of this, and I thank you for that hard work, because this was pulling together a lot of different factors. So all this that you've been sharing with us over this meeting and the previous one has been accumulation of a lot. But if we don't have a need for more of that, then we can do that kind of a conversation within a board meeting. But if we do need to go back to a drawing board, because this was kind of a drawing board situation, then then we,
And I like what you
So
said, I think an ad hoc committee has to come to some conclusions.
Mhm.
And then I agree with you that, we can put a bow on it and take the conversation to the full board meetings as needed.
yeah, and if we decide we need it again, we can come back to it, but I think we can figure that one out on Monday at our board meeting, whether or not we have a bow or we wanna, maybe tie the bow in a few more months.
I think we need potentially one more meeting to talk through the duties descriptions for the
Yeah,
positions.
so
we're
that's,
gonna add.
yeah, so I was looking off, so I was trying to think, like, because you asked the question, do I think it'd be helpful? And usually people don't ask me those questions. So,
That's
Um,
really helpful.
and that's what I'm
I
trying to
your
think, like,
honest response.
yeah, and then that's why I want to give you an honest response. First, I'm like, well,
I
I don't need any help, I'm amazing, no. No, I'm trying to think, like, what would be the purpose of it, right? And I think walking through the duties and giving a very clear understanding of what the budget you're voting on, right? I think that's important, because you're making a vote on having and adding an assistant principal, like, I want you to know what it is. Like, I think it's really important for you to understand what these things are. So I think going through that and having it, and so you understand then how that changes the organization is important. I was thinking, though, that the sounding board component is interesting, right? I don't think it's ad hoc, but I do have a district safety committee. I have one board member already on it. I can't have a quorum of board members, but that could be something where two people come onto that, right? Or they trade off and on, right? So then they can become and get more familiar with it, and then they could share topics with me, or then they could understand it. I think I was trying to figure out the structure we already have. How could we use that? Because that might be because Trish isn't here, but she was saying she does see a different in-depth understanding of it, because it's at a very micro level when we're working on all these things and, the conversations we have. So I think that might be a way to go too, because then it could be like, well, hey, I'm at the safety committee. How are we working on our traffic pattern? Are we using something simple? Yeah.
So, what we can figure out if the assistant principal position description is something that needs a whole other meeting or not.
Okay.
And
And dean of students.
dean of students,
Yep.
that, the middle school, high school.
Yep.
So,
Robin, do you have specifics that you would want to see as it? Because you're been in education too. You've seen different assistant principals and different things.
Is there an RTI coordinator?
what is an RTI
Yeah.
coordinator?
That's very good.
RTI?
Yeah,
Well, I was right, when you were
Yeah,
rattling
no.
off the admin, I'm like, geez, well, which one's?
you missed that one.
So
Yep,
RTI stands for Response to Intervention.
correct.
And there are different tiers to it. So depending on what issues or struggles a student may have, kind of the RTI coordinator will generally meet with that student's teachers to figure out kind of where are the struggles, where are the gaps? Okay, what can we do to get the student where we want them to be,
So
more or less?
we have two different levels. We have our academic levels, right? And then
Yeah.
we have our SBIT and our IST teams. So we have team-based approaches to that.
Okay.
So, and they are tiered
Mhm.
levels, classroom levels, intervention levels, but it's done by team. And that's
Okay.
something that we're still trying to kind of
Okay.
fix a little bit more. But elementary school has one, middle school has one, high school has one. So it's not an RTI coordinator across the board.
Okay.
Yep, so the social workers, guidance counselors, school psychologists, building principal, they're on those. And then teachers can send in names to kids and then they talk about them. They also go over attendance data. So then they pull attendance data weekly. So that's something I'm having them work on. They also pull quarterly reports.
Yeah.
So they look at all, so same ideas, right? And look at trends or anything like that, or behavioral issues. And then it's also where we have like our prevention issues. So if we see
Yeah.
a child who's maybe has a couple cuts that we haven't seen before or something like that, automatically goes there. Or we're gonna be rolling out a suicide prevention program that I've created with another person where it's like anytime someone says, I want to kill myself, right? Or they write, oh, I hate myself, I'm gonna kill myself, or the triggers, automatically gets a suicide assessment with a social worker. Now, you'd think, and I rolled it out and I got a lot of pushback. And by the way, I presented twice at the New York State Suicide Prevention Assembly for it. But what that ends up doing, it creates a culture in the building that other kids will report. And kids will realize that this is a very important, you can't say things like this, right? Or you've been able to target. So that program, it was a really small program, but it goes to the IC team, it goes to that model. So I live in the
That's okay.
Debbie Downer world, I apologize. So. Anything else?
Not at the moment.
Anyone else?
So we'll wrap up for today and make determination whether or not the conversation that needs to be had is a within board meeting or an ad hoc type of situation. And thank you again for.
No,
doing
thank
all
you. This
that.
has been very helpful.
Yeah, thanks for everyone for spending your time at this meeting. And for this, so we'll finish this one up.